Metropolis. I've got Kevin, the caveman Shirley, with me for the recordproduction.com interview. Kevin, what made you want to get into the studio business?
Listening to records on the radio, really. I was interested in classical music and in
Really? Yeah.
and in conducting and being in
Wow.
in music from that, and then
Did you learn an instrument as a child? Then did you?
I studied French horn and
Right.
piano and classical guitar, which I hated.
Hmm.
And then as soon as I discovered you could plug it in and make an awful noise, I was sold. That
Excellent.
was the way to go. I loved the sound of records.
Yeah.
I always loved the way Clear Mountain made records sound. I love, the way that Mutt makes records sound. I like sonic things.
Right.
Really do it for me.
Because I noticed we just heard you doing a little bit of mixing, and you listen quite loud when you're setting up a mix. Is that?
Do I?
Pardon?
That's how I.
I don't know. I mean,
That's how I've always done it.
Yeah.
So it's not. I'm not.
I mean, if you speak to a lot of mixers, they always say, "Oh, very quietly on the NS10s," but that's kind of normal fun listening level that you.
Yeah. Well, that's how I've always listened. So it doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't. There's a time and a place to listen softly to make sure everything's in its right place. And, but if you're listening that softly, it doesn't really matter anyway, does it? So it's like, I prefer people to hear it like. The subtleties in the mix are really cool. When you hear something far away, when you hear an organ in the other room and you go, what is that? I think that's cool. I don't think everything has to be presented on a two-dimensional plane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really love the 3 dimensions in mixing.
Mm. What are your 10 essential bits of gear that you need?
My essential bits of gear that
Is this
I
your
need.
rack?
These are my racks.
Ah.
I love the George Massenburg EQ, which I like to listen through all the time.
Is that a mastering version?
It is. It's very expensive and
Yes.
it's notched at half dB things, and I don't have much. There's a half dB at 10K, and then there's.
Is this across the mix?
It's across the mix, yeah. So I mix into it,
Yeah.
and I just like that.
So you set a little bit of top and bottom before you start mixing?
Yeah, I do.
Right.
And on the last couple of Iron Maiden records we didn't even master it. Oops, there goes Lucasade. We didn't even master it. The records came out flat.
Right.
From the studio.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of guys to do them, and
do you think mastering is part of the problem, the way that modern records sound?
I think mastering is dreadful these days. I don't think that there are many good guys out there. Just it's a running battle for me. I just did something down with this fellow down here, and the Led Zeppelin thing, and you spend time making sure that there's X amount of punch in the kick drum. And then I go down there and I said to him, look, I really don't want this to be the loudest record ever. I really don't. I'm not just saying that. I really don't want it. I don't want you to push it. And I want you to watch your compression. I know you can't keep your hands off it. I don't think it needs any. And he's like, well, Kevin, I don't think that's the way to go. And I go, well, look, I'd like you to try it. And then he'll go and he goes, I really don't think that's the way to go. And I do, okay. Well, you just do it the way you think. We came up here, we listened to it. All the attack was gone on the kick drum. And it just makes my blood boil. And so I go to another mastering guy and I get a bill from this guy for £5,000. And I'm like, it's like no one's paying attention. It's just, there shouldn't even be ego in that link in the chain. It should just, it's a technical thing. We're making a music go on a CD. Don't fuck with it. Don't squash it. Don't add all that top and bottom. I'm doing it in here. That's why we got these things. They're paying me a lot of money to make sure that that's right. When it needs remixing, we'll get a remixer in. Can you put that on the CD, please? I don't care how loud it is.
Well, it's an interesting point that in the old days you needed mastering because obviously you had to get it in the grooves on the record, but really you still end up with a digital file. You go to mastering and you come out with a digital file.
That's right.
Do you need mastering at all?
Well, as I say, the last 2 Iron Maiden records we didn't master at all. The one wasn't a good idea because, I kind of learned my lesson. I gave Steve Harris a CD of the mixes and I smashed them through an Apogee just so they'd be loud in his car. And he was like, this is what I like. And it was full of digital clipping. And I was like, oh, good grief. But that became the master. Yeah, that CD itself, the one he was playing in his car, he took it there, he said, transfer it. That's what I like. It sounds good in the car. Yeah. So I was like, oops. It wasn't meant to be like that. They were rough mixes.
Do you ever tighten things up as well? If you get presented with a multi-track and there's a few things not quite in time or that sound a bit ropey, you're happy to...
I just did that too.
Yeah. move things around.
I don't like to trigger samples. I don't think it's necessary. But you know, it's not a hard business, really. It's so simple. It's just they're very expensive microphones. You have something that sounds a certain way. You put a microphone on, and it comes out the other way, sounding like that. It really is that simple. It's not. I'm not arrogant. I don't mean to be obnoxious. It just is that simple. A very expensive microphone, capture sound, and put it on a drum. If it sounds crap, that's because the drum's probably tuned badly. Can you tune the drum any better? If not, then you end up putting a sample on it.
Yeah.
You know, so
all your essential gear that you own and you cart around with you, I assume. Have you ever wanted to have a studio where you just work from your garage?
Yeah. Yes and no.
You like coming to London and...
No, I don't like coming to London. I think London's the worst place in the world. I've travelled a lot and I think London sucks as a city. I just don't get it. It's like, not for me. But, no, I'm, you know, that sounds awful, but it's just all true. I think that when I like to have a break, then I like to have a break. And if you have a studio lurking in the back, you know, people call you up all the time anyway, and it's like, can you know, friends or band members that think they're friends, and they say, can you just do a remix on that single for us, and can you just do that? And if it's in your house, then you're kind of compelled to, you know. And I'm like, sure I can. The studio is $2,000 a day, and, you know, there'll be a little bit of expenses, so how much do you really want that? Or are you just like, you know, where are we going with this? Because if I'm going to go and spend my time doing it, then, you know, so it's not a matter of going out back and fixing a vocal or something. No, I don't think I want a studio at home. I have one close to my house. I moved to Malibu in California. Found this great room called the document room. Oops, don't say that, because then other people will go there. But found a great room with an SSLK in it, overlooking the beach, and it's 5 miles from my home, you know, so... Yeah. Well, actually, it's only 5 miles from my home because I moved to there when I found the studio.
Right.
And then I found a great house on the beach, and I was like, this looks really like a fun way to live.
Yeah.
So, sitting at the console, and beaches out there, and windsurfers and dolphins and whales, and it's good.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it really is good.
Yeah.
And it's really creative. People always, you know, there's this thing that you have to be, you know, locked up in a dark room in order to create music. It's really not necessary at all.
So do you, what's the future? What new music do you like? Or do you not?
Well, to be fair, I've listened to I've just finished. I'm finished now for the year, and I've done 14 albums. So that's a lot of music to do, you know. And some of it really big. Metallica was big. You know, Zeppelin was big. Iron Maiden, I've done 2 things with them this year, so that's big. So, and then a couple of, you know, small indie and unsigned artists along the way. But it's a lot of music to go through, so I haven't really had a chance to listen to a lot of stuff, to be fair. But at home we listen to classics or Miles Davis or of the new music that's out there. You know, I don't know. Nothing's really turned me on.
No.
You know, I buy a couple of things now and then. Someone says, you got to hear this, and I buy it, and I go, what's the big deal? It's same old a bit. Yeah.
What guides your taste, though, when you're producing? Do you sort of think, well, would I want to stick this on when I get home? Or is it a completely separate thing?
It is a separate thing, because it's a job. It's really, to me, it's like being a house painter. If someone says, can you paint my house pink? It's like, you know, it's not my color of choice, but I would do everything I can to make it the best pink house in the neighborhood. So, you know, no, I don't listen to everything that I do, but I just do what I like, really. Only because I don't really know what else to do. You know, that sounds good to me. So, you know, how does it sound to you? There are, you know, some people that make records a lot differently from me. I'm very quick. I like to work very quickly, and
I noticed that when you were setting the mix up. It's a random access. You kind of.
Yeah, it is. And I get it done, I get it done. I can mix an album in a day.
Hmm.
And that's really not a stretch for me. And I also don't check my mixes back. When I leave them, I'm happy with them. And you can just go up your own butt trying to work out whether or not there's enough bass guitar or not. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You can mix it 1,000 ways. Some ways give you more energy. Some ways give you more fidelity. Some ways give you, they do different things to your emotions. So I'll leave it where it sounds good to me.
I think that must be half the thing, is knowing when to stop.
Oh yeah, I think that's the secret.
Because sometimes you do rough mixes and they're great.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
When you spend 3 days trying to do a perfect mix.
Well, actually, I learned that from Daniel Lanois, who said he always ran a DAT.
Right.
And sometimes they would go back and pick those things up. And I love like the Dylan album, Oh Mercy. That's like one of my favorite albums. And it's not hi-fi, and the drums are all back in the corner and off to the left slightly, and you listen to them and that's fantastic. There's something that's in that evokes such a mood in there. And so I'm like, well, I'll be running. So at the end of every tracking session, we have a mix, At the end of every session, I have a mix. And at the end of the day, it's like, that's the mix. The last Iron Maiden record, we didn't even mix. We tracked it, and when the tracking was done, the mix was up, and then I ran it down, and those were the mixes. So it's not a labored process at all for me at the end of the day. I wondered if it was lazy, but I so often hate remixes when I go back and do them, and you start looking at things, and there's something about being in the moment with the mix and in the recording, and there are little nuances that you hear, and they're in the, Jimmy Page is a wonderful example of hearing mixes like that too, because he never changed a single mix in 60, 70 songs, and he'll come and have a listen and he'll go, why is it like that? Why have you done it a certain way? And I go, well, I just feel, that with the bottom end like it that way, that the guitar, even though it's a little soft, it meanders, it kind of creates a sort of, and he'll go, play it to me again. And then he listens, he goes, I see what you mean. Okay, cool. So it's just, every way is different. There's no right way, no wrong way, as long as the mood is coming across of the, the music.
Any special techniques or tips or secrets that you do that other people don't?
I don't think so. It's not rocket science. Just making
it's
records.
Rock science.
It's rock science. No, it's just your ears, really. Some people like them, some people don't.
Yeah.
That's one of the cool things too. It's like, I get emails from people that go, you're influential to my entire life, and you've changed the way I am, and I want to be like in this certain place, and you're the one that got me there, and gosh. And then I get other ones from this guy saying, I want to kill you because you've made my favorite band sound awful, and you're like, I'm sorry, guys. What can you say? And I hope I don't meet those guys. To get them all. I was just thinking.
You're quite open about it. You put your diary on your webpage, and you got all your email address on there, and you enjoy that interaction with your public.
I think it's obnoxious not to. I think it's obnoxious to put yourself out there and above anyone, really.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for the job. I'm very grateful that I get, the opportunity to mix and to record so many great bands. And I'm not a philanthropist by any manner of means. I'm not giving back to the community and whoop-de-doo. It's like, it's just a job. If people are interested, they're interested. It's like, no one really knows who you are if you're a record producer.
What do you think made you successful? What was it that made
tenacity? I think I'm a bulldog. I think I think it's and you can take that any way you want. I think it's dedication to an ideal. So, for instance, and I do this in everything in my life. We go into the studio with a band, and there's 5 musicians there, so we have 5 producers. once you have a direction that you're going in, you have to follow it through. You know, everyone wants to deviate at some point. It's like, let's make this part. Let's go ahead and move right on forward. And I think that persistence and that bullheadedness is really probably what's made me.
Do you have strong powers of persuasion and?
Yeah, I do.
Guidance.
I do. I think Joe Perry once said. He said, caveman is a nice guy. You won't meet a nicer guy, but he said you'll also never meet a more bullheaded man than that. So we got it done. We had a job to do, and we had to get it done, and those were difficult times. Steve and Tyler on one mission, and everyone else on a different mission, and we had to pull them all together and get it done. So. Yeah, and it's not an easy business to do. I don't know, really. The funny thing is that I don't get calls from record companies, ever. I don't do any record company work. I do nothing. I don't mix singles. I do stuff for people. When you make a mistake, we're going in the right direction. When you fall off the fretboard, that's when we're going in the right way. It's like, don't hold yourself back. Don't worry about notes bending sharp or strings breaking. Just go for it. Just rip the soul out of that guitar.
And the rock records all sound much the same.
Yeah, they do. They sound.
Why is that?
I think it's the pressure of a formula that radio is demanding, and labels are so anxious to get radio play that they always end up with the Lord Alge, Andy Wallace mix that is, the only thing that can make it on the radio. And
do you think it also, though, the motivation comes from the bands? When Led Zeppelin were playing, they weren't copying anybody apart from the blues and trying to sound a bit different, whereas now bands tend to sonically want to sound like certain other bands, don't they?
Well, it's all linked with success, I think. So it's like, if it sounds like that, then that's the right way to go. Which is a bunch of old cobblers, as they say.
Because Led Zeppelin were essentially caught live. If you heard them play, that's what the record sounded like.
Well, that's not quite true. I mean, Led Zeppelin, and I can only say this because I've been working with them.
You've just mixed the live record.
Yeah, and we did the DVD but the thing about the records is that Jimmy just did such a wonderful job orchestrating all the instruments. But the thing was, there was excess, but it was nothing that they couldn't. There was no magic that they couldn't produce live. It was different. It's something else. That's about band as a very rare exception of just four of the stars in the universe colliding and just becomes this massive exploding sun. It's just something else. That.
Do you think bands these days, they tend to have to work harder to recreate the record when they go out live now? Because they've done all the...
I don't go and see bands live, to be honest, so I really can't tell you. What I will say, though, is that when you listen to Zeppelin live, you have to think to yourself, I bet you there isn't an A&R man around today that would sign them. Because it's just... There's nothing that can be played on the radio. And it's just, it's a sorry state that music has sunk to the levels of product. It's just soap powder. It's just dishwasher. It's
What can you do to change that?
Well, you just have to be yourself. I think you just have to. If you're a musician, and you have to believe in the music. When Sony came and took over the record company, and it was all about immediate returns and how soon can we make our money back on something, the nature of the game changed. Catalog has become nothing anymore. So you just have to be yourself. The record companies don't care if you have a hit. Then they love you, and if you don't have a hit, they really don't even want to, talk to you. So, it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.